Liz,
Hi.
thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Of course. Good to meet you.
So before we begin, you mind telling us a bit about your military experience? For example, what your MOS was, how long you were in?
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years, active duty. I was a 6694 number MOS, but what I really did was I created servers, so I built virtual machines, I did some cybersecurity risk analysis, and I was in the air wing, so I worked with heavy lift helicopter.
Cool, so 5 years in the Marine Corps. How did you end up here at Columbia University?
To be honest with you, it's a really funny story actually. So I grew up in New York City. I originally immigrated from the Ukraine, but growing up here, I always knew of Columbia as like the Ivy League that, I could never get into. And I made an interesting bet with myself when I was in the Marine Corps. I was coming up on my re-enlistment, and I said to myself, if I got into this school, I'd get out. And so I applied to a couple other colleges to pursue my degree, as well as this school, which was my reach. And it was just my luck, and I got in, so that's how I ended up leaving the military and then finding myself here.
So when you were still active duty, did you use any resources? How did you do your research, and what was your plan to get into Columbia?
So I actually did not do any research whatsoever. I did not use any resources at all. I actually had no idea that programs existed like Warrior Scholar, some of the other initiatives that are in place to help veterans get into top level schools. I did not know of that. So I applied raw, I applied kind of just a shot in the dark. And that's a unique, I think, perspective because a lot of people here do utilize.
Yeah, you were one of the few and if only person I've ever met that's done that. That's incredible.
I wish I did know about those things though. I think that would have made it easier to
also, who cares? You're here. That's what matters.
Navigate.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that being said, since you didn't necessarily use any resources, like what advice would you give the E4, the E5, the 20-year E7 who's done with the military and is considering a school like Columbia or just considering college in general?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to not self-select. So do not think that just because you may not come from a background that has set you up for an Ivy League education, do not self-select yourself out of it. I'm a firm believer today, like as I stand here right now, that anything is possible. You need to take that leap, you need to take that jump and believe in yourself. And listen, if you don't, you're gonna be in the same exact spot that you, like if for example, you don't get accepted, right? You're gonna be in the same exact spot that you were at that very moment. And then there's a potential that you do get into a school like this, which is exactly what happened to all of us. And I would say that believe in yourself, shoot your shot, do not let anybody tell you that you can't do something, and do not self-select yourself out because the non-traditional path is sometimes the better path. Yeah. Cool,
so I'd like to shift gears a little bit. Tell us about your time here. What do you major in, for example?
I'm a sociology major.
Oh, cool, so what led you to that path?
I chose sociology because I wanted to be able to do my own field research. So it's a interesting field in which you get a lot of creative freedom to pursue any type of research project that you want. So whether you want to do, I was particularly interested in sustainable development and how that intersects with sociology, how you can do research in that field. A lot of veteran affair research going on, a lot of political intersection with sociology. Yep. So I would say it's a very creative field where you can choose the path that you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So an issue a lot of enlisted veterans face is they think that they need to have a set plan when they get out. They need to know what they're majoring in. So would you say that your desire to major in sociology stemmed from your time in the Marine Corps?
No, absolutely not. I do see a lot of my peers here come in with one expectation, I'm going to major in X and then end up majoring in something completely different because your perspectives are really widened once you come here. So I did not think I would be majoring in sociology. I came in as a political science major, just like many of us do.
Like I graduated with.
Exactly, yeah. So I would say that you don't really know until you get here and you find your niche.
Yeah, no, totally understand and appreciate that. So would you say you faced any challenges transitioning directly from the Marine Corps to Columbia University?
I personally think that I did, yeah. I didn't have a resource foundation kind of given to me before that, like I'd mentioned earlier. So I found it very difficult to navigate the colloquial kind of culture here and getting immersed immediately into a civilian life. Gotcha. And my transition happened pretty much overnight. So within a week, I was back here in the city. And getting tossed right into that was a little difficult. So time management, organizational skills really need to be kind of touched up. Yep. Knowing that the workload isn't going to be lighter than it was in the military. It's just going to be different. Yeah. So, yeah.
So since you just jumped right into the deep end, how did you learn how to swim when you were here?
I I would say the biggest thing that helped me was my support around me. So the community that I've met here and have built here for myself, the strong veteran presence here has been really like monumental for me, knowing that I'm not the only one going through these things. And another thing that I think is really important to touch on, we as veterans oftentimes want to keep things to ourselves, don't want to tell others that we're struggling, don't want to admit even to ourselves that we might be having a difficult time.
Yeah.
So something that's important, I think, is to speak up, speak out, get that community to kind of help you, because we're all here for each other.
Yeah.
And that was something that I took a little while to realize, but has been tremendous for me here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super informative. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your military community here on campus. Are you involved with any other communities outside of MilVets or the military identity as a whole?
I am involved in some communities with my job. I have a full-time job. I work for Sony Pictures.
Oh,
so
that's
I,
fantastic.
I do,
Cool.
yeah, I do some kind of organizational work there, but in terms of school, I'm with MilVets here.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So that job that you have, full-time here?
Yes.
Wow, God bless you.
Yeah.
So how has your time in the Marine Corps or in college in general affected that path to Sony Pictures?
Interesting question, because I got zoomed into that industry only solely because of Columbia. So
Really?
MilVets as an organization, we offer transitional kind of assistance and career initiatives and stuff. And I stumbled upon an internship with Paramount, which is a media and entertainment
of course.
company. And through that internship, I was hired. Then I transitioned into Sony Pictures. So I was directly plopped into like media and entertainment through a Columbia kind of initiative. And so it was just like, I was curious. I wanted to try out a new industry I was not familiar with, but was interested in. And I think that speaks to like a lot of the opportunities available here for veterans that are a little bit more geared towards like creative sides, not just tech and finance and so on.
But you're on the more creative and like art side career-wise then, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like I'm like interview aside here. Like I've never met anyone that's like working full time and going full time and working in like the arts. So like
It's really
that's
cool.
super cool. Like this is awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh man, like
And my
I don't
hoodie.
even. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, that being said, I feel like you're kind of like the pinnacle of just like, I'm gonna try this and see what happens.
Exactly.
So would you say to the military community who may be watching this, like, just don't be afraid?
Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to try something new. I think our culture as military people is always very structured and always kind of like, geared towards one linear path. And I would say that Columbia really gives you an opportunity to step out of that comfort zone, like the things we know to be true, right? And try out new things like media and entertainment, for example, or whatever else it is that you might have been curious about in the past. You can do that here and really set yourself up for success as well.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So before we let you go, do you have any last thoughts or anything you'd like to share with anybody watching?
Yeah, I would say that if anyone's curious about Columbia or curious about like a top 10, 20 school, like do not self-select is my biggest piece of advice, because I thought about like what advice I would give and how I could speak to the fun we have here and the strong community here and how you can make it anywhere you go. But I think a lot of people are scared to take a leap sometimes, and especially something like an Ivy League institution is scary, because I remember feeling that way too, being scared. And I would say that even if you do feel scared, even if you're feeling unsure, just shoot it anyway, and it might be the best decision you've ever made. So
nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was incredibly informative.
Thank you.